Welcome to Mining Now. I'm your host, Jared Downey. Joining me is Gowdy Molina. Hello, Gowdy.
Hello and good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. I don't have a lot of exciting things happen to me, but yesterday I had an owl chasing my dog.
And that was exciting for you?
That was exciting. Yeah, that was pretty. Well, she's a little dog and it was a big owl. So it was actually stalking us through the trees.
Really?
Yeah, it was.
Huh.
Yeah, pretty interesting. You don't, I grew up in wildlife, but I hardly see it now because I live in a concrete jungle. So, yeah, brought me back home.
To owls chasing dogs?
Owls chasing dogs. That was every day. Yeah. Today on the show, we have Mr. Kelly Strong. He's the Vice President of North American Mining Operations at Mosaic. Mosaic is the world's leading integrated producer and marketer, it's an interesting word, marketer, of concentrated phosphate and potash. They have a project in Saskatchewan. They have a project in Florida. So we're going to be unpacking that, some of their ESG targets for 2025. Lots to cover. Before we do that, Gowdy, sponsors.
Absolutely. All righty. So first up, we have NSS Canada. NSS Canada provides safe, accurate, and innovative survey equipment solutions. As a Leica Geosystems and Hexagon Mining authorized reseller, they specialize in engineering, construction, and mining solutions. You can learn more about their services at nsscanada.com or call them at 705-744-3246. We also have Savanaugh Equipment. Savanaugh Equipment supplies new and used mining equipment around the world, from placer to underground to ore processing plants. They have gold concentrating tables, trommels, and mineral jigs in stock now to take advantage of the high gold prices. You can visit them at savanaughEquipment.com, where you will find more equipment every day. We also have Holly Frontier Lubricants and Specialties, which includes the Petro-Canada Lubricants brand. Petro-Canada Lubricants products and services are proven to maximize equipment performance, productivity, and overall savings. From heavy-duty engine oils to hydraulic fluids, automatic transmission fluids, and gear oils and greases, Petro-Canada Lubricants is committed to delivering innovative solutions that deliver value and keep businesses moving. They have dedicated technical expertise, knowledge, and know-how to help customers in the mining industry operate smoothly with improved equipment, reliability, and performance. You can learn more at lubricants.petro-canada.com, or you can contact them 1-866-335-3369 to arrange a call with one of their technical experts. You can also watch them on the Crownsman Show as well. And of course, we've got the CIM 2022 Convention and Expo, which is coming back to Vancouver in person in May. Show off your products and services in mining technology, digitalization, equipment, consulting, and engineering. There are a whole lot of perks waiting for exhibitors, and this expo will sell out fast. If you're a researcher thinking about what mining will look like for future generations, this convention is the perfect place to present your technical paper or lead a short course. Visit CIM.org for all the details. Book your exhibitor space now and submit your abstracts today. And last but not least, we've got Power Zone. When you need a specialized team of world-class engineers for your oil and gas pipelines, dewatering, or any fluid handling needs, you want to visit powerzone.com. In addition to their inventory of rebuilt pumps, motors, engines, they also have an amazing team to design and engineer your systems, no matter the challenge, no matter the location. Get in the zone with Power Zone. Visit them at powerzone.com. There we go. I did it.
Thank you, Gowdy. Thank you. Kelly, I feel like some of our sponsors were directing their messaging towards you. Very fitting. Welcome to the show. Good to have you on. I got to do some research on Mosaic and your operations, so excited to have you on. Welcome to Mining Now.
Thank you. Appreciate the invite.
Have you got to do a lot of these? I mean, they're becoming a lot more common. A lot of these long form interviews before.
I've done a few of them over the years. Yeah, I think with the technology advancing and being a little bit easier than it was years ago, it's becoming more commonplace now. So
yeah, it's there's definitely been a shift, and I think we're going to see here, like for instance, Crownsman will be on the floor doing our interviews at CIM, and it's sort of this. There's becoming all these hybrids of with live events, and then you have the online ones, the interviews, and is it getting how do you say it? With this all the shift online, but with live events coming back, is it getting easier to get the messaging out and just have more conversations to more people now? Is it sort of all this craziness we went through in the next last couple of years? Has it created a bit of clarity for what platforms to be on?
I think it's now, as we're out and getting back to some of the conventions and conferences, we've now got really two ways that we can communicate
Yeah.
quite effectively in person, and then also through virtually, through what we're doing here today. So I think if there's any silver lining in all of it, is that we've got now another tool to communicate effectively with that we probably didn't use or exploit the way that we could have before.
Yeah, I mean, even us, we used to have our interviews in person. They used to have to come to our studio, which was, someone in your position. That's a big disruption to come to Vancouver for a couple days, and sometimes flying from out of country and all that. So, um, can you talk a little bit, just kind of give that bird's eye view of Mosaic? Just the scope of the company.
Yeah, I mean, we're a large, fully integrated fertilizer company. We produce phosphate, concentrated phosphate, and also potash, which are two out of the three most important ingredients needed for agriculture. We employ about 13,000 people or so in 6 countries around the world, and really our customer is the farmer, and we have those customers again all up through the globe.
I actually noticed when it said like you're an integrated producer and marketer of concentrated. So what is the marketing part? Are these are you are you selling direct to like a large farm? I know this is very much a layman question, but I'm just curious. Or are you selling to then processing another organization that'll process it and then distribute it?
It's mainly done through retailers that really distribute the fertilizer to the farmer, but we do have a lot of direct contact with the farmers, looking at different technology and looking at, we make a lot of specialty products for various different crops. And so, we have a lot of that face-to-face contact, if you will, with the farmer. But it's mainly distributed through the retailers and the supply chain.
Do you I want to get into a couple, kind of right off the bat, a couple of your projects, because I know this Saskatchewan potash mine. I mean, that's sort of a mega project. I think I'd be right in calling that.
Yeah, over in Esterhazy, we're still commissioning, and then will be completed probably at the end of Q1 into Q2 of next year. But we're just commissioning what we call the K3 mine, which has been over a $3 billion investment in that operation, capital investment in that operation. And it will effectively, by putting that two new shafts in there, will make us one of the most efficient underground potash operations in the world. Highly automated facility that we've built there. We've got 4 rotor mining machines underground that are working on to be fully automated, which means we can go without an operator being on the machine to actually cut the potash and convey it to our shafts. So a lot of good technology there, and it's a project that's been going on for a bit, and it's coming to an end here shortly.
It hasn't been, from what I was reading, it's been about 50 years, I think, since something. I don't know if a new mine. I think a new potash mine has actually been in Saskatchewan. Are the new with all the new automation in that, has that helped the process? Just the technology that mines can use now, does that sort of help win over and get these projects green lighted, or has it helped?
For sure. I mean, nowadays the technology is so readily available, and it's certainly not as expensive as it once was. So it's and then it obviously makes our operations a lot more efficient and cost effective. So I think it does. When we start to look at the finances of these projects going forward, technology plays a big part into getting the capital available for them.
It said, I think this is going to, so this mine will produce 30,000 tons per day. Do I have my notes right?
We will actually be able to do about 60,000 tons up to different shaft systems there at K3.
That sounds like
So
a lot to me. Is that a lot?
it is a lot. I mean, I know my roots is underground mining, and I've worked in different commodities. This is a lot of, for an underground operation, this is a lot of material moving through the system. It's certainly a lot more than I've ever been involved with in my past companies and operations that I've managed before. So yeah, it is a lot of potash we're moving every day.
And I don't know if this is in your sort of scope within the company, but I'm just wondering, we've had so many people on our show with different technologies, and I've asked the question before of how do you integrate all these together? Well, you're part of that process, because a shaft, this shaft is going to be, again, looking at my notes, I think it's 3,300 feet below the surface. Like, it's just
Yeah.
huge. And so putting all this together, I just, how does a company even approach that? Because it's such a large scale, and with all this technology, what was the process of even choosing just the methods and all that? I mean, that in itself must have taken years, really.
It was a combination, I think, of things that we built in house. We look at some of the automation of the mining machines that we use to cut the potash underground. That was all developed internally with our own technical people. But there's other things like the hoisting systems out there we use, or we would have saw what others were doing and kind of use that sort of off the shelf technology that was available to us and kind of put it all together into a project. So it was really a combination of learning from others, but also things that we built inside of our business.
How competitive will this mine be in comparison to other operations, even around the globe, just in efficiency and ESG targets and things like that?
Yeah, if you look at just even on an ESG perspective, I mean, we are doing it now, and we'll continue to do it with the K3 project, producing potash at probably, I would say half of what others are doing when you look at, greenhouse gases and these types of things, and you compare it to some of the overseas potash operations. So it is Canadian potash mining, I think in general, is very sustainable when you look at it compared to other countries. On a productivity basis, we will have when you look at, say, an efficiency on a cost per ton, we will, when the project is completed and fully implemented, we will be the lowest cost per ton potash producer. I believe, certainly in Canada, we believe on the planet.
It's quite the accomplishment. Yeah, I was watching videos of how the design and how it's all set up and the operation. I mean, it's just crazy. Can we talk a little bit also about your Florida operation? That I was looking, what I found really interesting with that, and maybe the Saskatchewan project is similar, but with the Florida, just how many communities were sort of attached. I think you employ I think over 3,000 employees in that operation, right?
Yeah, I mean, we mine here in Central Florida, so we're just east, I would say, off of the Tampa Bay area. We look after about over 300,000 acres of land. So we actually have, we're a fairly large landowner here in Florida, and we operate in 4 different counties, and like you were just saying, multiple communities. So it is a very large, if you're to drive from one side of where we're doing work to the other, you're driving for a good hour or so, when you look at the extents of the property that we're operating within.
And what type of mine is this? Is this a shaft as well, or is this a different style?
No, it's all surface mining with, so
Oh,
it's all strip mining with drag lines. So it's big drag lines, 55 to 60 cubic yard bucket drag lines that excavate the overburden and then also excavate the phosphate rock. So it's not very deep. We're mining effectively 80, 90 feet at max below the surface topography. So very different. And
I see.
yeah, and we slurry it up with water, and then we pump it back to our milling facilities for processing.
I see. That because I saw quite a bit of talk about reclamation on that project. So the surface mining now correlates with that, because that must be a major focus with that scale, on doing surface mining.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, part of, it's a very, I would say, a complex process. Just even, starting to mine here in Florida, there's a very regulated permitting process with, with the county, and federal, and also state agencies. So before we can even mine in an area, the permitting process, it takes a number of years even before you start digging into the ground. And part of that is we have to have a reclamation approved program from all these agencies as well. So it is a big focus. That department actually resides in my area as well. And we will build lakes, wetlands. We actually enhance the land that we're mining right now, from the perspective of just the type of vegetation that is there, and then also even the animals that habitat the area. And that's really what our goal is, to leave it in a better condition than we started mining it in.
What would be an example of that? Because I was reading that on your website as well, that you can actually enhance it. So what would be an actual example?
So on the land itself, we might have, land that we're going in that was potentially pasture land. So, relatively flat, not a lot of, potentially whether it be recreational use or otherwise. And we might turn that into a wetland or a lake where you've got fish. We might stock it with bass or things like this. So it, where it was maybe a pasture before, it could be more usable land, and some of it depends on what the county wants here too. They
Right.
The needs and wants of the counties. And when it comes to some of the animals here, we do, there's all sorts of examples. One of them that's just more recent is that we've been talking about here, and we're using technology with it, is we have what we call burrowing owls here. So they're actually owls. I heard you at the beginning of the broadcast talk about an owl.
This is a weird theme.
Yeah. And so we have these owls here that inhabit the land that we're planning and mining, and we remove these owls and put them in other areas, and we're actually using technology to actually monitor where they're going, how they're living, what they adhere to as far as their habitats, to make sure that we're putting them in the right location, they're thriving, they're actually expanding their population, not contracting. So we actually have these little transponders that when we catch them, we put on them, and we have towers that we track their movements here in Florida. And we're using that to really make decisions on where we mine, how we mine, and where we move the owls to.
Do you think, hearing you talk about this, it came to my mind, do you think I guess I'll just ask it bluntly, do you think mining has done a good enough job at showcasing this type of thing? I mean, obviously you're on here talking about it, so that's
Right.
that's a step. But I'm wondering, you talk a lot about, attracting, young people to mining and that. And I was thinking, if I was, 10 years ago entering into the mining world, and I was working for a company like yours, and I heard that would actually give me another level of pride working for the company. Has that become a big focus for a company like Mosaic to let not just not even just the public know, but just their own people, of what they're actually being a part of?
Yeah, I mean, I think the people that work here in the operation, if I think about Florida and the example I gave you there, most folks are really aware of what we do, the value that we bring to the communities here. I think what we need to continue to do work as far as advocating mining, is out with with our counties and our communities, talking to people that maybe are less familiar with mining, and do a lot of education. And some of it, for example, I used to sit on I was chair of the Ontario Mining Association for a few years when I was working in Canada. And we commissioned a lot of work at that time on just trying to really, what audience do we need to penetrate to really, look at a different view for mining. And, some of it was the children or the kids in the schools. We found it was actually even educating the parents of the children, because they have a big influence into the careers that their children choose coming out of high school. So we started doing some work there. So to your point, Jared, I think we just need to do more of it, because there are so many amazing examples that I was unaware of until I started working for Mosaic a number of years ago, that we do here that do make you feel proud about working for this company, and that it's not just we do so much more than mining here, which is our core business, but we do so much more to enhance the environment that we're working in.
Yeah, no, I was reading through a lot of your information yesterday, especially about the one in Florida. And like I think it's called Hardy Lakes Park.
Yeah,
I think that's a reclamation project itself, right?
exactly. It's a park here in the county, in Hardy County, that was an old mining area, and it was transformed into a park with sort of a series of lakes there that people use. I've been there a number of times myself with my family or for work events.
Yeah.
And there's a number of state parks. One that I use frequently is a mountain bike park called Alafaya, which was an old dragline mining area. And it's mining companies of the past turned that into a park where hundreds of mountain bikers use that facility every day.
Yeah, I saw that. I always liked when someone's in a certain area. I like to ask something, like if someone's from Texas. We just had a gentleman on, ask him about sort of that military, that military value that comes out of Texas and get some interesting answer. I hear people talk about how people from Florida perceive alligators. And the reason I bring that up is because I looked at Hardy Lake Park, I'm looking through the pictures of it, and for sure I saw an alligator in the water. So you're saying
Yeah.
you've been there with you and your kids, and people out here, I mean, we're scared of them.
I,
What is the
I don't know.
perception of them?
I think it's an interesting, it's almost like how do I compare it? As a Canadian, we see black bears around, and we're
Yeah.
out hiking or whatever, and generally we don't get too overly concerned, because we always think that they're a lot more afraid of us than we are of them. I think it's the same down here. There's just if there's a body of water somewhere that's of any reasonable size, you're almost guaranteed there's going to be alligators in it. And
Yeah.
we've got some reclamation areas here that we've done years ago that are huge wetlands. I'm talking like 4,000 or 5,000 acre wetlands that I've been through them on airboats myself, and there's, I want to say, thousands of alligators in these areas. So they're flourishing in the environments that we're reclaiming, bird life, all sorts of things. But yeah, there's a lot of gators around here for sure.
Very Canadian to me to be like, tell me about the alligators. Yeah, how do you think? I want to go a little bit more into that ESG focus, because, and I always like, if we can, to sort of that comparison. You've been in the industry long enough to sort of see 20 years ago, not even what the approach was, but what the perception was. Because it shifted in 5 years since even I've been around here. So, where did it sort of, when did this really start to become a focus, did you see in your career?
Yeah, I think the first time I heard the term, if you want to call it sustainability, was, I would say, probably in the mid to late 90s, somewhere in there, in the company that I worked for. And I think it was kind of it was a lot of companies around, at least in Canada, where I was working at the time, were starting to talk about sustainability programs. But I think it has evolved, where it was like a concept of what you were going to do. Where now, through the maturity of sustainability, I think it's just really an expectation that companies are going to put forward, goals, and what can they do to contribute to, reducing that environmental footprint as much as they can. So it really has went from something where, it was talked about, to now it is truly an expectation of companies, society, governments, that you're going to engage. And I think really what we're starting to see is that, and you mentioned it earlier in our discussion, is that, people that are coming into our business, this is an important part of
Yeah.
what when they're choosing an employer, that they want to be with an environmentally responsible organization that really does manage the environment, or good custodians of where they operate. And otherwise they may choose to go elsewhere. So it's really just becoming baked into what we do every day, right through from our boardroom right down to, right into our deep into our operations.
Where where do you think, how do I ask this? Is there the when you have a sorry, I'm having trouble with this question. Right now, if you have an operation like you have in Florida or in Saskatchewan, has it started to become easier, or is it still a challenge? Because and what I'm referring to is there's sort of these period when new ideas are coming, or a new approach to doing things, where you've got to kind of align business and people and government and the public. And is that system starting to smooth out, like what's expected, what steps need to be taken, or is that still very much an ongoing process?
I think it depends. It can be a little bit dynamic, I think, depending on, you know, it could be depending on the government that's in, that is in, that is, whether it's a majority or minority at the time that you're working through it. That could be at the state level, federal, provincial. There's a bit there. Um, but and it is a very, working in Canada, US, going through this from the infancy stages of wanting to mine to actually mining. It is a very complex
Ooh.
process, and it's got all the right steps. I think, we have to make sure that we're doing things right. When we look at mining in areas, I think there's still some work to do to really, make this a bit more efficient and maybe a little bit less bureaucratic long term. But where we have some, I would say, some disadvantages in that way, in respect to what other jurisdictions or countries are, where they've got a lot of advantage over us with regards to the regulatory process, or taxes and other things. And so, even though we are acting very responsibly as an organization, um, we don't always get rewarded per se for that, because, we're not necessarily the lowest cost producer as a result of that in some instances, because we are at a bit of a disadvantage compared to other areas.
I guess another way I would ask it then is there enough information out there that these the responsible mining can be done in places like the United States and Canada, and it can be done at a competitive. I mean, obviously you're doing it. There's obviously huge investments in that, but can it be? Could it be a lot easier? Is there enough in place? Do mining operations, can they put enough on the table if they get that support, that they can do sustainable mining? Are the pieces in place?
Yeah, I think they're all, Jared, I think they are there. We just have to continue to keep working with, the regulatory bodies, the agencies. And again, it's a two, to me, it's a sort of a two-way dialogue, understanding their perspective and where they're coming from, but then also understanding as industry where we're coming from. And, obviously we support a large tax base for the areas we reside in, employment. I mean, obviously there's a huge economic benefit to us existing, and it's making sure that, we each understand the point of view. So I think it's there. Can it be better? Obviously it always can be better, more efficient. But I think the pieces are there. We just got to continue working together on it.
Well, I will say one thing that I've noticed is that a few years ago, and granted, we were a new show, but we're getting a lot more mining operators wanting to come on and talk very freely. I mean, and you talk for 45 minutes, an hour, and this is a public show. It's not, you don't have to log in to watch mining now. So there's something I noticed right there, and just within the last year or so, that people really have wanted to explain what they're doing. And to me, and I think to a lot of people in the public who aren't even in mining, just that alone, even if everything that they get here they don't like, they appreciate being told. And I think that's a real, I'm sort of kudos to you and to your organization, because that's a real step for just telling people. I've been saying this on the show for episode after episode. If you tell people, then it just sort of takes away this confusion. I really think it makes a difference.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think that continue to have that dialogue. Again, we have we have a team of people that really work with connecting with the various governments and talking about what we do. And there's a lot of advocacy for mining in both countries, that I look after. There's the Dig Deeper campaign in Canada. There's a similar discussion going on here in Florida, and it goes back to some of our earlier discussion that we had. It's really trying to get our message out about the economic benefit we have, and we can do that and be a sustainable and responsible company, which we are doing. But I think it's just continuing to get that message out there, and understanding our position and understanding, I think, the influences outside of our country. Where there's potash and phosphate around the world, and we obviously want to be we want to be part of that, and we have to stay competitive along the way.
I want to talk specifically about a couple of the ESG focuses, like water. Again, I don't know what your expertise is in that particular field, but that's obviously a major thing, major usage of water. How is Mosaic in either operations? How have they approached that?
Yeah, I mean, we set targets for ourselves as a company. For example, on water, we're looking at reducing our water consumption on a per ton of product by about 20% by 2025. And then also on greenhouse gas emissions, again, looking at about 20% reduction per ton of product by 2025. So what we end up doing is each operation that we have is responsible for putting together different initiatives or projects to achieve that. And then collectively, that's actually measured up through the organization as to the impact of those programs to achieve those targets. So it's not just a number that is out there, that it's actually, there's a calculation that we put into it with the various projects. So in things like water, we look at a lot of recycling water in our plants to versus obtaining fresh water for processing. Greenhouse gas, we're looking at things like solar, a lot less diesel and fuel type consumption in our based on the equipment we use. So there's all sorts of projects, and each site again has a representative that has to pull that together on behalf of the site, and it comes up centrally to a group that looks at it, and we end up measuring that to make sure that we're on track.
I saw again, going through your ESG targets, that you were talking about, because we talk about so many suppliers, but you're actually taking a focus to going as far as to some of your suppliers and contractors, and that they're going to be having to have certain targets and stuff at some point as well, right?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, we the contract community that we work with, and in many cases for certain services rely on. I mean, we treat them as if they were when you look at things like safety, for example, we treat them as if they were one of our own. And when it comes to expectations of them coming to work in our sites, we are going to cast the same standards that we do on our own people and our own operations. So that's exactly right. I mean, part of our, when we're selecting contractors, we will look at those types of things to see what they've got in place, to say, and they would have an advantage over others if they're seen favorably in that light.
Going into another one of the goals, it's this is just a personal one. I grew up around Indigenous communities, and so it's just, when you grow up in a certain environment, your heart sort of stays with those communities. And I also saw there's something that was important to me when I see written that we want to have good relationships with Indigenous communities, and then there's nothing. I read and there's no number. And I go, okay, well, this just looks good. But you actually have a very specific target. It's 15% representation by 2025 in Canada. Is that a goal that you've looked at and that is achievable? Which it's coming up 2023 years now.
Yeah, Yeah, it is. I mean, we're on target. We've got sort of a target per year that leads up to that number of 15%. And we are on track. I mean, we have a lot of good engagement with the Indigenous communities of Saskatchewan. And I, like you, I grew up in Northern Ontario, and so this one when I came to the company and we talked about this one is very near and dear to my heart as well. And I've been involved personally with a lot of with Indigenous communities in Ontario before in mining, and really cherished those relationships and got to really understand a lot more about those communities. And so when I saw what we were doing here, it got me excited as well. So there's a number of communities that we are engaged with. So we're looking at really a 15% of our, a few things. One is 15% of our total community investment around Indigenous run organizations. And we're also looking at 50% of the new hires in Saskatchewan that are Indigenous candidates. And then also our 50% of our procurement activities. So companies, contractors, services that are Indigenous owned, we're looking at increasing that as well as contractors that aren't Indigenous owned. We're looking at them having a portion of their workforce, for example, with having Indigenous community representatives on as well. So yeah, I think putting the numbers to it, to your point, it means something. It's more than something we want to do. It's very specific, and I gravitate that, I think, in a similar way that you did when you read it.
Yeah, it's like you're saying, when you grow up, you have an understanding that, and there's a certain portion of me that is certainly, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's definitely part of my upbringing as well. But there's also, if you're paying attention at all, you realize that if you're coming out of an environment where you're not being given an opportunity, you can't. I had an Indigenous leader, and now his name is slipping my mind. It's like, but you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but you better have somewhere to walk once you do. and
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to. And then when I see companies doing this, it gives me a lot of pride to be able to do this show and have these discussions, because I know it's actually being backed up. It's not just a little tag on their website. And I just want to, before we wrap up, I want to talk about you just personally. I mean, you've had quite a career in mining. You've got to sort of live all over the world, and I just want to talk about just what it actually has meant to you being in the industry, and where you think it goes from here.
Yeah, listen, I have been truly blessed working in this industry. I mean, I tell a story, Jared, it was over 30 years ago when I first stepped into an underground mine, and there was something about the darkness and the smell and the environment that intrigued me. I don't know what it was, but literally a light bulb went on. And I said to myself, this is something that I want to do for the rest of my life. It was kind of an odd moment, but that was like 18, 19 years old, and over 30 years later, I'm still doing it. So it has been an absolute pleasure to work in it. I've been able to look after operations all across Canada, in the US, in UK as well. I've lived in both, the US and Canada, and in Indonesia for a few years. Those opportunities, I may not have had in choosing a different career, but I love it. The people are, mining people are just resilient, great to be around, and I was, maybe I was lucky that I picked the right thing at the beginning of my career, that it was something I was going to enjoy for the rest of it. So yeah, it's I think for me, what I really get pleasure out of now is watching sort of young professionals come into our business, or young miners come into our business, that I see some of myself in them, and I'm maybe a bit envious that I'd like to do it again, but I'm on the back nine, I guess you could say, of my career. And but I really do see, there is a bright future for mining, certainly for our commodity and fertilizer. Our world population continues to grow,
Yeah.
and we need to feed people. And I mean, so it makes me feel really good about what our mission is. And I think, one thing for me that really will play big going forward is the technology. And we are getting into it in a very big way. And it'll be that next generation that comes in really take these operations to the next level. And I think for me, as a senior leader, is really making sure that I provide those young leaders and young professionals with the space to be able to create that future for us. And I have a younger team here that I said to them, I said, I'm just providing you with the canvas and the paint and the paintbrushes. And I said, you folks are the artists that will create the masterpiece of the future. So that's kind of what my job is now. But it's just been a great 30 plus years in doing what I've been doing.
Yeah, it's and again, going back to, having someone like yourself on the show. I watch for sure. I've had when we started, I had people that they would think, someone like yourself, they'd be, "Oh, I've been in it 30 years. Don't do people want to be almost like we should have young people on the show." I said, "Well, give young people something to watch. Give me something that I can actually learn. I don't need to talk to someone that I've already had the conversation. I need somebody that has all this experience so that we have a foundation." And we made a really conscious effort, and we've had young people on as well, but that mixture, and you start to kind of piece it all together again, that knowing where you've been so you can figure out where you're going. So no, I really appreciate you coming on the show, Kelly. I appreciate, CIM putting everything together for us, and your company, being transparent, helping us walk through these conversations. It really is important. We get 25, 30,000 people watching these episodes. So it really does mean something to come on and share. So I appreciate it.
No, I love it. And hey, being in the US, I miss the some of the lobster CIM functions that I used to get to go to. So CIM is a great institution, and one that I've been part of during my career, particularly when I was in Canada. So yeah, I was more than happy to join you here today and have this discussion.
Are you going to be in person at when I think May, when they have the CIM in Vancouver?
I know I might, I might. I now, I want to, traveling's opening up a little bit here,
Yeah.
and I've been up to see some of the sites, and yeah, maybe time, who knows? We'll see, but maybe I'll get out there and see some old familiar faces.
Well, we'll be up there with lights and cameras, so hopefully we'll see you there and can meet in person. Those will be fun days, and we can do that again.
Sounds great.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, Jared. Thanks. Take care.
And thank you everybody for watching. We love doing the show. It is so we went through a long streak where we had a lot of suppliers on, and that which we're just really unpacking literally the nuts and bolts of how mines come together, and now getting to be able to sort of bring it all together with the mining operators has just been fantastic. We've got a lot more episodes. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for your support. Please suggest guests. You'll see so many different types of guests, and the reason we are able to accomplish that is because you're sending us people. That we have people even around the world now that suggest guests to us. It's absolutely imperative to producing good content for you. So thank you for your support. Please make sure to follow, like, subscribe, and we will see you on the next episode of Mining Now.